A woodland photo walk isn't all about capturing enormous epic trees, it's also about the details as well, and there are plenty of those around, from trees to shrubs and bushes and even fruits. So let's take a look at a couple of ways of capturing close-up detail on a woodland walk. Now, the first thing to know about taking close-up pictures with any camera, let alone a smartphone camera, is something called minimum focusing distance. And it kind of describes what it is. It means that you can't get too close normally to the subject because your camera cannot focus on it. And that is where a macro lens like this comes in. Now, this is just a clip-on macro lens that can fit pretty much any smartphone. And what that lets you do is get really, really close up to your subject. So here we go, here's my BlackBerry. And what you can notice straight away is how really the point of interest is very, very narrow indeed. There's a really shallow depth of field. Everything outside the frame is thrown out. And you have to be so careful with focus here. So what I'm going to do is lock focus by tapping in the middle of the screen there. And with a very, very steady pair of hands, frame this BlackBerry in the middle. Now, there's a bit of a breeze today, which isn't helping things all that much, so just a bit of patience. And what I want is for the front of the BlackBerry. Let's wait for that wind to go. I want the front of the BlackBerry, the bit that's closest to my camera, to be in focus and not the back of it. That requires a little bit of patience. What you can do is to do a burst by holding your finger on the shutter button on many cameras and then just move your phone backwards and forwards so that you'll pass the point at which the nearest bit is in focus, like this. And again. Let's go for that one there. Actually, that's chosen the best one automatically. You see how the bit that's nearest to the camera is in focus and the rest of the berry is out of focus. Takes a bit of patience, a bit of trial and error, but this is a really interesting way of capturing detail really up close with a macro lens. Often when we're composing our images, there are points of interest that we want our viewers to concentrate on. One of the ways of doing that in traditional photography is using shallow depth of field and focus, and that's where our points of interest are in focus, the background is out of focus. That's been a bit of a problem in the past for smartphone photographers, but not so much anymore with something called portrait mode. Now, many smartphones that have got two cameras have a portrait mode that lets us have that shallow depth of field effect. Some smartphones with just the one camera will also have a portrait mode as well. It does that using artificial intelligence, but sometimes that can only work on faces. So it's just as well to make sure you understand what your smartphone is capable of. This smartphone does have two different cameras, and I'm going to try and capture these blackberries and isolate those in amongst quite a busy background, and I'm going to use portrait mode to try and do that. So here we are framed up in standard photo mode. As you can see, it's a really busy shot with lots of other leaves and blackberries all in there. We'll pop it into portrait mode. And what this is trying to do now is to find the object in the foreground, this clump of blackberries just here that I want my viewer to focus on. And you see these blackberries now are in sharp focus and the background is out of focus, and that's the effect that I want. That's the portrait mode. Just tap on it. There we go. Now, when you are out in the open and taking photos of plants, leaves, small objects like this can get blown around by the wind, so you just have to apply a bit of patience. But that there is really sharply separated from the background, so there's no mistake about what the photographer wants the point of interest to be. And again, compare that to a normal photo mode where there's a lot going on there. It's quite busy. The portrait mode is far more satisfying. And you see here the camera's struggling to work out where the edges are a little bit, so just touch around the screen a little bit. And after a second or two, camera should identify, there we go, what the foreground is, what the background is.